Hi, I'm Jay. Probably recognize me from the other updates. I thought I'd take a little moment to... Sorry, I look like hell. I don't sleep a lot. I mostly work on this project. I'm wearing sweats, which probably doesn't mean a lot to some people, but I don't even really go outside of the house wearing sweats. I don't even wear them to bed always. That's how I feel about sweats. Yeah. But when I'm working on Good Kids, Bad Kids, I wear them sometimes because I don't leave my house and I don't sleep a lot. So it's like game face. That's my game face all the time. I wanted to take a moment and talk to you a little bit about myself as a filmmaker so you could get a better feel about that. First off, myself as a filmmaker, I have always had a huge heart for documentary. That's probably really where my heart actually lies, is in documentary. But I choose to reflect that a lot of the time in narrative film. I think that as a filmmaker, I feel an ethical obligation to use the power of film to actually communicate and display something about what's going on in culture and in society, either by reflecting it or by making a commentary about it. And this can either be through the characters or by putting something in the plot that specifies what's going on in politics, by having homosexual characters, for example, that might be dealing with the fact that they can't marry legally, or the fact that they are homosexual and that is viewed in the culture a specific way, or depicted a certain way normally in cinema. Or it could be in a response to how things are normally depicted, such as we're doing with Good Kids, Bad Kids, where we have homosexual characters but it's not a main plot point. That's in response to what we see in culture too. So my point is with that is basically that as a filmmaker, I put a lot of ethical thought into what I do, not only from a visual standpoint of how the story is being told, but those underlying plot points of why something is being told in the first place, the motivation behind things, and then that base point, because it is something I'm so passionate about, social issues, cultural issues, because it's something that I'm so passionate about, motivates a lot of care and strategy in the way that I execute my films, which means, like I said, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of thought process goes into it, making sure that the message stays consistent, making sure that characters stay consistent, making sure that visually things are balanced, that the focus is where that it needs to be, not the focus like the focus ring, but focus as in like, is the mise-en-scène pointing to things where they should be in the screen? Is the color palette accurately, correctly saying what it should? There's a lot of thought process that goes into things, that we take a responsibility on ourselves instead of just pushing it off onto the art department, onto costuming, onto consistency. We take those ethical responsibilities onto ourselves, because that's what it becomes, an ethical responsibility. There are other filmmakers that do this. It's definitely not a completely unique niche, although it's a specific niche that's not filled very often. My favorite example of it that I use a lot is Slumdog Millionaire, that highlighted a lot of cultural and social issues going on in India through a narrative plot, with poverty, the way that orphans are being treated, need for medical supplies, all that sort of stuff, was highlighted through narrative format. So instead of saying, these are social issues going on in this country, we need to talk about it, a story was told, and then through that story people were like, we should talk about these social issues because we watched people, these characters, go through them. And I think that's a really good example of ethical use of film, of narrative film, to talk about social issues. I would say that is a major heartfelt route for myself. I'll back up a little bit here. You can see my hands look like. You don't see scripts come out of me that are very, like, oh, here's just a guy trying to get a girl, or here's just a story about a girl getting a job. There's definitely a lot more implications that go into it than that. Everything says something, and if you don't realize what you're saying, then you're saying even more than you realize a lot of the time. I am not a can't even say it. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm really not. I try to know when it is good to let go. I think that film is organic and needs to adapt with, not only as the story adapts, but it needs to adapt as you bring people in to make the film with you, because film is a collaborative medium. If you could just go out with a camera and make the greatest film of all time, everybody would do it. But the reason that we have good films come out as good films is because you have the highest caliber of talent all coming together in this, you know, combination where you have this cinematographer with this director and these actors and this editor and this composer all coming together with this one key grip guy that made this one really awesome dolly pole really pulled together, and you have the perfect shot. And allow your actors and allow the other creative components of your crew, your makeup artist, your grips, your DP, even your interns who are coming at it with fresh eyes, fresh out of school, that might not be thinking as much in the box as you. All of these people can come into it with a creative component that should be incorporated into the film, because everybody's fingerprints are all over this film. Everywhere. Which is probably my favorite part about film, because you're not just a painter sitting in a room scribbling on a canvas making something to express something to yourself. You're creating a communicative form of art that has a huge amount of teamwork behind it. So as much as this script and this concept was sculpted and created and has a base with Travis and myself, I like to take this as an opportunity for building bridges between people, for opening avenues, for creativity, for discussions of lifestyle, for discussions of filmmaking, for can we make this happen? I have a friend of mine who's making us a flexible, custom-made dolly, track, and everything that can hold up to 5,000 pounds, which we would never need it to do. Because he works in metal fabrication, and because I've talked to him about the film, and that is his way of contributing, first off, but also because this is a collaborative project where he is contributing to it in his own way, because his creative form is knowing these numbers and knowing how these things come together, and then knowing what I want to do visually with this project and allowing an avenue for that to happen. I think that's just the perfect example of how film should work.